each and every one of you tonight to the 4th District Community Conversations. I want to welcome all of my residents and business owners and stakeholders and just everyone. If you live in the 4th District, if you own a business in the 4th District, if you're a stakeholder in the 4th District, we want to welcome you here on tonight. Now, for those of you that do not know the communities that make up the 4th District, I want to share that with you. The communities are Southbridge, the Riverfront, all of downtown, the East Side, south of 9th Street. We have the Upper East Side. We have Midtown Brandywine and Trinity vicinity. So again, I want to extend to each and every one of you on tonight a heartfelt, warm welcome. So on tonight, this is our second event for the Community Conversations. And our topic for the Community Conversation is public safety. So in a few minutes, I'm going to turn it over, but this particular Community Conversation is all about the Chief. Is going to share some information with you. This is a warm, friendly conversation that we're going to have with you, the constituents. And you can ask questions, and we're going to learn together on tonight. So having said that, I would like to turn it over to our Wilmington City Council, President Hanifa Shabazz, and she's going to introduce our special guest. Let's give her a hand as she comes.
Good evening, everyone. It's really great to see everyone. You know, the 4th District is very, very special to me because I once had an opportunity to represent you, and I'm so glad I'm able to turn it over to the great hands of Councilmember Michelle Harlee. Let's give her a round of applause for putting this all together. And I want to thank all of you for your attendance and joining us this evening for our Community Conversations with City Council. Before I begin my brief remarks, I'd like to recognize that we have Councilwoman Rashima Dixon that's also joining us, Councilwoman at Large. So I believe strongly that civic engagement is a critical component to our ongoing efforts to address and resolve the multitude of quality of life issues that's facing our city. It is that same belief that guided me in my efforts to establish this Community Conversation with City Council initiative. Often during the Civic Association and neighborhood planning meetings, your council representative is your first line of defense when addressing local issues. And when it comes to solving issues at the local level, we must listen to you and include you in the resolution process. As Council President, my goal is to engage Wilmington residents in their neighborhoods to share important city-specific information, but more importantly, to listen to you, and that's what Community Conversations with City Council is all about. As you might imagine, public safety is the #1 concern of residents, businesses, and visitors of Wilmington. In some instances, it hinders our effort to attract employers and jobs to our area. To this end, I felt it was imperative that public safety be the focus of the Community Conversations with Council initiative. I felt that it was equally as important to partner with Wilmington's new police chief, Robert Tracy, and introduce him to the diverse communities across the city. I've had the pleasure of meeting with Chief Tracy and speaking with him about our great city and the important work ahead of us. I can tell you that Chief Tracy is qualified, capable, and committed to reducing crime, employing and redeploying the rank and file in a more efficient and effective manner, and strengthening the relationship between the police and residents of Wilmington. Chief Tracy has a proven track record for using data-driven analysis and good old police ingenuity to address and reduce crime. He's done it in New York and Chicago, and with our collective support, I'm confident that Wilmington will realize similar successes. Again, thank you to Councilwoman Harlee for hosting us this evening, and thank you, Chief Tracy, for partnering with City Council and sharing your vision for our city. But more importantly, thank you all for coming out and sharing your concerns, suggestions, and ideas for moving Wilmington forward as a great, world-class city we can be proud to call home. Thank you. Now I have the distinct honor of introducing Chief Tracy. He's a 30-year law enforcement veteran from New York. He was recently Chief of Crime Control Strategies for the city of Chicago. While there, Chief Tracy's strategies, policies, and restructuring resulted in a 30% reduction in overall crime during a 4-year period and the lowest overall crime rate in 50 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Chief Tracy.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. And thank you very much for the warm welcome. Council President, Councilwoman Harlee, thank you very much for having me here today. But before I get started, one of the things about these meetings is not just about me. It's about me and the Wilmington Police Department and the team that we've assembled who's been here. But some people have been reassigned, and how we're getting back with community engagement and with community relationships, going to these community meetings and working to get together to reduce crime and also work on some of the quality of life conditions so we can make this city a more welcoming place for all and a better place to live. So with that, I'm just going to bring my officers up. They're going to stand with me. They're not going to be up with me the whole time. But I want to introduce you so you can see who some of your leadership and some of the people that are working together with you, and so you get to know them. And they'll be here through the meeting till the end, and we're going to share information on the ones that can work in this area, day in, at night, overnight, not just in the downtown business district, but also geographically, that's working in your area, in the 4th district, but also, I call it Sector 2. So with that, I'd like to have Inspector Cecilia Ash please come up. I'd like to have Captain Bill McGillen. Come on up, Bill. I'm going to do it slow so you see them as they go up. We got Lieutenant Wilfredo Campos. Come on up, Lieutenant. Now, these are all the people that serve in the area that are responsible for what we're doing and how I go about. When I give my presentation, you'll see where I'm going with some of this. Sergeant Gary Taylor. Come on, Taylor. Master Sergeant Andrea John. Come on up. Where's Andy? Then we got Senior Corporal Matt Reese. He just had a call for service, and I'll get into that. Our officers can come to these meetings, and they can put themselves out on the radio, because these meetings are very important. But I hope the community doesn't mind if they do come in, and they have to run out for a call for service. We don't mind that, right? We want to get them here, and then actually, if they have to excuse themselves, if the call is over, I want them coming back. All right, so there's one of my examples. So that was part of my speech. I got that part out, so we'll leave more time for questions. Master Corporal John Playo. Come on, no. James, I'm sorry. Corporal Matt. Begani? Begani, right? I have trouble with your name. Come on, Master. And then what do we have left? Did someone just walk in? Hey, Anthony, come on, how can I miss you? You got pants on today? Good to see you. You're not on a bike, right? All right. So this is just some of our 314 officers, but I thought it was very important that you meet the ones that are serving your area, and these are the ones working the shift. These are the ones that are working during the day. I've had some change to make sure, change from the daytime to come here at night to make sure you get to meet with them. And there are some that are on days off, and they are rotating shifts. But as we have these meetings, this is a big town hall meeting for this 4th City Council district. But what I want to do, I want to get down to community, civic organizations, and associations, that we can get more granular. And I'm going to make sure that I make every single one. That was my promise when I came in, that was announced down at the Chase Civic Center. And I had said that I will be in every neighborhood, I will go to every meeting, and then I'll make sure my officers are going to every meeting. So I'm going to continue that pledge. I might not make every single one, but I have my office representing. But I'm certainly going to get there one time and continually, at the time, I'm going to be here, hopefully for a lot of years, and I'm going to continually be there. And that's my promise to you as a community, because everything starts with our relationship. And there's no crime reduction plan, there's no plan moving forward for the safety and a better life for our community without the community involved with the police and the relationship that we have. Building trust starts with getting to know each other first. And until we do that, we're never going to be able to gain trust. There's some communities we have no trust. We're going to build that. There's some communities we have little trust. I want to make it better. And the ones where we do have a good relationship and trust, then you know what? Let's maintain that. And that starts with us. And that's my pledge, making sure that you know the officers, they work in the same area, you have that relationship. And that's how we solve these issues. So I'm going to let them all sit down, but I want you to meet them. They're going to stand by afterwards. And when questions come in, I might be pointing them out, who's responsible for that area, and also sharing their contact information with you, so you can have that dialogue moving forward. It's not just this meeting, this is a continuous relationship and how we can get in touch with each other. So, thank you very much. I have to stay behind this podium, right? Because I'm on film. Is that...
Actually, Chief, we got wireless mics for you this time.
Right.
So you can take it.
I actually like to get out from behind the podium.
But you gotta take the mic. It's right there.
In front of you.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were gonna... But then I feel like a lounge singer, you know? I'm sorry, I'm just having some fun with everyone tonight. You know, I think people have seen me at some of the press conferences on my announcement. I've been to other community meetings. I've been to another town hall. But I just wanted, for those that don't know me, I was born and raised in the Bronx. My father was a Bronx homicide detective for 34 years. I knew a profession I was going to go into in life. It was just a calling. I saw what he did, the sacrifices he made, but unbelievable reward in the way he talked about how we can help people. My mother was a nurse. Who'd think? A nurse and a cop being married. So I have 3 siblings, a sister that runs a hospital as a director, a brother that's a colonel in the Army, and another brother who's the black sheep of the family. He became a stockbroker. He didn't go into civil service. So my father goes, oh my God, how could he go into something where he's not going to get a pension? So, but he's doing very well, my little brother. I became a police officer at 20 years old. I took the test when I was 16 and a half. You were allowed to do that in the NYPD. I was very lucky to know what I wanted to do in life. And I just had to wait till I turned 20 and stay out of trouble until that time. And those are some of the things I want to look at when we go forward as far as application processing and how we can bring more people into this profession, create the diversity, and possibly start bringing down the age as far as when you can take the test. And then you come on at 21 years of age. I want to make sure that we create the biggest pool and the best pool and actually bringing a better opportunity for everyone to take this test. And that helps us create diversity in the police department. Spent 24 years in the NYPD, rose to a rank of captain commander. Shortly thereafter, I worked with Citigroup. I was business continuity and crisis management vice president. I traveled globally all over the world. And that was where my wife wanted me to go. She goes, hey, I can stay home with the kids now, because I have 5 children. I have a 19-year-old, 17-year-old, 2 14-year-olds, and a 9-year-old. I just bought a house in Wilmington. I live up in the Triangle. It's the only place that I can afford to have a bigger house for my wife, my 5 kids, and my dog. And so we're living up there now. But she asked me to leave the NYPD, and I think I left way too early to a profession I love. And I went to the private sector. But she thought that would be great, but she could see me more. But little did she know when you go to the private sector, that's just not the case. When they're paying you and you're doing these things, she saw me less. And she actually said, I need you to get out of this position because I want to see my husband and my kids want to see their father. I ran a $100 million security company in New York, Connecticut, New Jersey for 3 years. And then I was lucky enough to be chosen by Gary McCarthy after he was appointed by Mayor Rahm Emanuel to head up as the Chief of Crime Control Strategies. And that's where we created, I followed some of the methodologies in New York, and we brought them to Chicago, and we had some great successes, and the city council president hit on that. Now, Chicago's having their troubles right now, so I gotta put it on the record. I'm not responsible for 2016 and 2017 numbers that Chicago's going through, but I am responsible from 2011 and 2015. And in that time, we were able to reduce murders and shootings to the lowest in 50 years. And the newspaper articles, and where's our news journal? Hey, Christina. Well, they did challenge me on those numbers. They said, well, it's the lowest murders and shootings that we've had in 50 years, but Chicago had 3.3 million people, only had 2.8. So what is it per capita? And I was challenged by the news media. They were absolutely right. I was wrong. It was the lowest murders and shootings per capita in 49 years. So I had to correct that. But those are some of the things. But we didn't get there without working with the community. Everything we were trying to do is be transparent. Everything with these crime strategies that I'll get into. What we've done on top of good policing and the great work that is being done and continue to be done by my officers that you met tonight and those 302 other officers. But if I do my counting right, who's still working and how many officers I have, what we're going to do with this city. What we do is we bring business management principles to police work. And that's called the CompStat methodology. And I told you I came on when I was 20 years old. That was 1984. So for 10 years, we were doing reactionary police work. We were working very hard. We were working in silos. We actually kind of were keeping the community at arm's length. And in 1994, a gentleman named Bill Bratton was brought to the NYPD. So that outsider who came from Boston, he was in the Boston Police Department that has about 2,000 police officers. He came to a police department that I belong to of 40,000 police officers. And we're like, what can this man show us from the outside that we don't already know? Well, he showed us. And he actually is showing the policing world. Well, he came in and he helped revolutionize policing, working with community, business management principles applied to police work, CompStat methodology, accountability, organizational discipline, organizational accountability, organizational communication. And with these things that he brought into place, we were very, very fortunate. I was fortunate to go from that time and be able to be exposed to it and be part of it and part of those successes, where we were told back in the early 90s, there's nothing we can do to reduce crime, and no matter what we do, it's not going to work. Well, in the early 1990s, New York had 2,245 murders. You know what they had last year? 330. In a city of 8 million people. And through these methodologies, and they keep evolving, through these methodologies that were put in place, they have reduced every crime category by more than 90%. 90%. I worked in a community with a 3-mile radius. 3-mile radius where I was in a 3-4 precinct in Washington Heights in Upper Manhattan. And if you ever go over 95, it hits over at the tip of Manhattan, then it goes up to the Bronx and up to New England. And in that community, we had close to 120 murders in a 3-mile radius. And I was told, there's nothing we're going to be able to do with this. I was a young sergeant then. And when we started putting these things in place, working with the communities, that precinct in that 3-mile radius went from 120 murders. It had 1 murder last year, and it was domestic. And crime is down 90%. That was working with the community. When I first came here, probably one of my first shootings I had in the beginning, I was going to most of the shootings. I'm very happy with the way we're dealing with things in our response and the way that we're doing things afterwards to try to prevent further violence. That when I was going to the first shootings, and I believe it was actually down in Southbridge, one of these shootings, was over behind the convenience store on 2nd and Chapel. And I had, remain nameless, but I did have someone from the news media saying, hey Chief, whatever you do is off the record, whatever you do, there's probably not a lot you're going to be able to do to make changes. I said, where did I hear that before? I heard that 20 years ago. When I went to Chicago, we were told the same thing, there's not much you're going to be able to do. Well, we did it, and we didn't do it alone. We did it with the great work by the officers, very good direction, a plan, accountability, making sure that my leaders are leading, and we give them the tools to accomplish it. They go out and carry the plan, and I hold them accountable. I'm accountable first, I hold my leadership accountable, and it goes down. It's a clear plan of what we're trying to accomplish with the community. So I get here, well, after I left Chicago, I went to the private sector, national company again, and this opportunity came up. I knew somewhat with Wilmington, Bobby Cummings, I got to know very well. We were sister cities as far as trying to find solutions to crime strategies. So I got to know Wilmington and said, wow, they've experienced some of the things that we are, what we were in Chicago. And what happened to Chicago, full disclosure, 2016, 2017, All the strategies we put in place, they changed direction and they went a different way. And that's the result that you're starting to see. Other cities do not change direction. New York and LA stay the course even when you have controversy. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to build your police department and your relationship to the community and the plan, and you have to give it time to work. We can't look for the quick fix solutions because that's all we're going to continue to do, and we're not going to get anywhere. I've seen it. And then Chicago went back to doing what they used to do, and they're suffering for it. People are dying. And so, you need water? Wake up. You good? Is that okay? That was yours? So where was I? Sometimes when you abandon a plan and you don't stay the course, and then I've heard when I came to Wilmington that we've tried this before. We worked on West Center City. We did these things. But sometimes if you don't get immediate results, you try to get the next new thing. If you don't allow things to sustain, and you have to build for the long run. If you're going to look to have things that happen in LA and things that happen in New York. And that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing. And that's what I'm putting in place. Been here 13 weeks. 13 weeks. And I've seen so much promise, so much enthusiasm, optimism, and hope in every community. And I'm going to every community. I'm going to make them all. I'm going to make all your civic associations. I promise that. And I've seen the hope. And you know what? When I go to the meetings, people always say, where is your community policing? We want community policing officers back. We want community policing back. But if you asked everybody in this room what they thought community policing is, or even ask people in law enforcement, we'd each give you a different answer. But what I will tell you what I think community policing is and what I've seen, and I've been part of community policing in New York. That same community that I told you about that went from 120 murders down to 1 last year, I still go back every other year and I have lunch with the people that we were able to work with. 20 years later, the relationships I have in that community. And it's a very diverse community. And you know what? We actually look at the struggles, we're all worth it, and where we are today. We're all older now, a little heavier, but it was definitely worth it, and I'm so happy the accomplishments we made. But where is community policing? How can we get our community policing back? Well, community policing isn't just 12 specialists throughout the city. You know, I want my community policing in my area. I don't want one officer being the person that is handling your complaints and then managing up. I want this city's divided into 3 sectors, and this is Sector 2. And your sector captain is Bill McGillen, who I just introduced. Bill is my head of this whole area for community policing. We divided the city up into 3 sectors. This sector, each sector has 3 districts, so we break it up again. And within it, we give people accountability. It's called district integrity. And that means the same officers work the same district, work the same sector every time they go out. So when there's issues, they know what the conditions are. They know who, when they start to have the relationships, and we have better relationships, it's the same person going out. But it's not just one person. It's going to be all my officers. And they can continue to come to these meetings. And when people say community policing went away, I think some things happened a couple of years ago when the community policing unit went into a disrupt unit. We didn't do a very good job of getting people back out to the community, to these civic associations, out to these meetings. Because that's where it happens. You have to be exposed, you have to start with a relationship, you have to see each other, you have to have that conversation before you even start to build trust. And that really goes back where it's going to help us with cases, it's going to help us reduce crime. I often hear in the community, or from my offices, that, God forbid, if there is a shooting, that the people in the community or people from the community do not want to help us. Well, no. I got people right now that have a notebook ready for me. They're going to hand it to me as I go out the door, and rightfully so. I'm going to follow up on it. But how can you expect a person to help you in a community if the first time they're talking to you is when something bad happens and you have no relationship? We teach our kids not to speak to strangers. But if we're a stranger just getting out of the car when something bad's happened or a calls for service, and we're not going into the community just to make sure that we're in there and having those conversations, or we're driving by with a car 15 miles per hour with our windows rolled up, that's not the way you relate to a community. And our officers sometimes get into the habit of always waiting for that calls for service, so they're worried about, if I get out of my car and start talking to the community, I might have to go for that emergency run. Well, almost half of our time is waiting for an emergency run on tour. So what are you doing all that other time? I want you to be ready for that. But you know what? We want directed patrol to the conditions that the community is prioritizing to us. And also, what we see in intelligence-led policing, that I've been a big part of, coming through that methodology from New York, bringing to Chicago, and now we're bringing these systems into the Wilmington Police Department. And when we do that, we'll prioritize with the community what we need to look at, because 50% of our time can now be looked at that. And we're telling our officers, giving them good direction, consistent direction, we want you to do this. We want you at the community meetings. We want you getting out and doing this. And like I said in the beginning, I was going to use that example, and then one of my officers wasn't here that I was going to introduce. He had to go out for a call for service. And let's make sure he's not going out for a call for service just to miss this meeting. They will be coming back. Well, let's check up on it. And that's it sounds simple, but it's really not. Because we're conditioned in the technology in the day and age of 911 system. Everybody thought that was the greatest thing 25, 30 years ago. That we can instantly, you call a police officer and then there are rotary phones now. Everybody, you don't know what rotary phone is, but 911. So you just do that and you get an officer. But technology has taken us away from that cop getting out on the street, walking during their downtime. And when I say downtime, waiting for that call for service. You don't have to walk that far away from the car. And I want the officers walking to me. I want them outside the cars. I want them in all weather doing that, addressing the conditions. I want them engaging. And then I want them at these community meetings taking notes. And when they see this, instead of being directed from just the chief or the inspector or the captain at these meetings, and then tell them this is what we want, it comes that human connection where they're seeing in real time what people want and meeting who the community they serve is and what the importance of what they want. Because not everything is about shootings and murders. We'll prioritize this, everybody wants, but everything else matters in the system that I'm putting in place. Quality of life conditions, nuisance crimes, nuisance properties. I hear more about that, I'm sure I'm going to hear about it in this meeting. We will deal with those violent crimes and what we can talk about. I'll tell you how we're going to move forward and reduce that. But I'll save it for most of the questions. And I want to leave it more open to questions because I think we have a better dialogue and it gets to the things that in a room like this, I can allow more time where I can answer more specifically. And then when I get to the civic associations, we can be more granular, and we'll make sure our officers are there as well. So I'm going to give back the floor to everyone to open it up for questions. And the floor is open, and I'll try to answer as best as I can. I might direct it to one of my officers. And if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to fake it. I'm going to say, I need to get back to you on it. And I will get back to you. I will take your number and get back to you. So the floor is open. I'll open it for questions. Is that a good way to go? Okay, very good. And if I could just say one more thing, because I introduced my officers. This is a calling for me. This is something I want to do. I came here and I couldn't be more privileged and honored to serve this city and be the chief of the Wilmington Police Department. This has been my dream, to be in a city and run it and have that authority to try to make a difference. Because I didn't want to be in any city. I wanted to be in a city where it had some challenges and we could make a difference. And I'm one of the luckiest men alive to be able to do something like that. What I do right now is not work, because when you do something you love, it's not work. It's really a lifestyle. And my wife knows it, and I thank God I'm married to this woman that now is uprooting family again, first from New York to Chicago, and now she's coming here, selling the house in Chicago. We'll close in August. We've got to figure out how we're going to get everyone here, start school at different ages. So here I am. I'm invested. I'm going to be here for you, and that's my promise. So thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Hi.
We have a mic behind you, so now we're ready to get here.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Chief Tracy. I know we all appreciate you coming out to these and talking to us about what's going on in Wilmington. My name is David Skransky. My wife and I bought a house in Midtown Brandywine a few years ago because we love Wilmington. We want it to be a great city. And I prosecuted cases for a while, and now I'm on the other side. I'm an assistant public defender here. But I wanted to ask you, because from my perspective, the biggest problem right now is lack of follow-through on cases, where I don't want to say a lot of officers, but a number of officers feel that making an arrest is the end, that they've done their job and then they walk away from the case. And then they leave the prosecutor with the case to try and figure out how to successfully prosecute it. And I don't think it creates a lot of trust in the community for somebody to get arrested and then for them to see them a year later back out on the street having a failure to prosecute. Or like we saw a couple weeks ago where somebody gets arrested and they have an alibi and then it turns out they're not actually the person who did it and there just wasn't any follow-through. So I'm wondering what you're doing to address follow-through with your officers and to, I guess, create more synergy between you and the Attorney General's office so there's more successful prosecutions.
Well, that's a great question, and that really folds into legal citizenship, and where when we make an arrest and people are right back on the street again, so people feel helpless and nobody's doing their job. So certainly it turns around that I didn't want to call the police, I don't want to cooperate. Some of the things that you talked about, the case doesn't go through, that person's right back on the street. When I did cooperate, now I'm in fear for retaliation. So I understand all that. How we get past that and how we move forward and first, a lot of things good are happening. They're one-off, and there's some cases that it's happening, but we want to prevent them all from happening. And the first thing I got to do is I got to come in and make sure that I'm speaking to the U.S. Attorney and the Attorney General and their people. And the first thing I did, the first couple of weeks I was here, I met with David Wise, who's the acting U.S. Attorney General. Him and I had a great conversation. I've had great relationships in Northern Illinois District, in the Southern District, and Eastern District in New York. And here in Delaware, there's no doubt in my mind I'm going to continue that relationship, and I want to make sure we build on it, the relationship we have. Secondly, the Attorney General. Matt Den and I met with all those people. They were at my announcement. I met earlier in the day before I was announced, and then I met again with his whole team, and I continued to speak to them. Sean Lugg is top prosecutor. I was on the phone with today on 3 different items. In my CompStat methodology and my meetings on Wednesdays, I have the Attorney General Office representation. We have AJ Roop and his team. So AJ, I go by AJ because I always call him AJ. So AJ Roop, I want to make sure I don't mess up the last thing. But AJ and his team are there every week. We meet on all crime cases with our detectives. And you know what? And meet with the Chief Justice. I'm meeting with the Criminal Justice Council on how we can improve relationships. And they mean everything. And when I see some cases that are not going through, especially gun cases, right now, I've actually pulled up all gun cases to make sure this is not a training issue, that our officers are not articulating probable cause that doesn't bring the best case before the Attorney General to prosecute these cases, to make sure people are not back on the street again. That can cause harm if they're the shooters or they have guns. So I'm reviewing all those cases, and I want to know what supervisors signed off on as well, because then it's a training issue all the way up. And I've asked the Attorney General to bring those cases to me, and then I've looked at the review, working with ATF to make sure that we're writing the cases properly, we're working together. So that's a great question, and it's one of the first questions I asked to make sure that it might not only be us, but I can't point fingers at someone else, the prosecutors or the judges or probation or the Department of Corrections, until I know, make sure that my house is in order. And that's what everything I'm doing. And I've already started that process. So I assure you, it's something I know is big, because why go through that whole process of, sometimes we got the right guy, but when the case falls apart, that's where the community loses faith in not only us, but the whole criminal justice system. But it's a great question. That's what I'm doing. If you have other ideas that maybe on this, I'd love to talk about it afterwards.
Thank you.
So thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
My name is Margaret Guy from Stop the Violence Prayer Chain Foundation. And I wanted to know, like, I ride with children and pick them up in the city of Wilmington, all in different areas, on the east side, north side, different areas. And there's always a lot of lingering on the corners. You know, the people are standing on the corners, they're doing a lot of things that the children are seeing, just riding by. We can't even have the windows down because the smell of the marijuana is so strong that it comes in the windows and the children, you know, are breathing it. What do you do? I've seen police ride right by these guys. They're gambling, they're smoking their blunts and everything right on the corners in front of the children. What do they do? I mean, are you doing anything about, are you able to just kind of go and move them off the corner? I know that they move from corner to corner, but you know, we have to start somewhere. So that was my question.
Well, it's good to see you again. And I just want to let you know, we actually were interviewed for one of the shows with children. It was children reporting.
Pardon me?
It was called Children Reporting, right?
No, A Child's Point of View.
Child's
is
Point
our
of View.
TV show for
And
children.
it was a TV show for children. And this guy actually was the host and the interviews. One of those children took me up on the offer to come by the police station. He's coming in the next couple of weeks with his mother. I said, if you want to come by and see more about police work, he actually emailed me. I didn't know what the email was because it says, Mommy Look at AOL.com. And it came to my email, because I gave him my email. And he says, I would love to come see them. And I'm saying, wow, I didn't know it was a child at first, because he wrote such a great email. I met you once, and I'm saying, who's Mommy Look asking for it? I said, and then I saw her, and he writes on the bottom, this is my mother's email, and I'm 12 years old. And I said, thank you for qualifying it, because he threw me off. But the question you asked is a great question. And that's where, when I talk about, we have to make sure we change the way we do things, not just asking calls for service. And that consistency, and I call it consistency about the conditions that you're talking about, getting to know those conditions, getting to know people in the community. We have to overwhelm, there's a small percentage of people causing these issues. We, the community, have to overwhelm them with goodness and consistency. We from the police and reports from the community. We don't want this anymore.
Right.
And then I talk about it with our officers, and we're trying to ingrain it, and Bill can back me up on this, that when we do each shift, we got to make sure we get the communication internally. That's why I talk about organizational communication. So shift to shift, each person knowing the community, knowing what the conditions are, and communicating and taking care of those issues, that it's not just, sometimes the community can tell us what officer's coming on duty by what's going to happen, because how they take care of what's going on in their area. And we want to have consistency.
Right.
And the consistency is that each officer on every shift is going to be addressing those conditions you talked about. And I know some of the ones you talked about.
Yeah.
It's prevalent, but we can get there. And I remember the smell of marijuana 30 years ago. I never tried it, and I didn't even not inhale. I never tried it because, remember, I took the test at 16? I wanted to become a police officer. I never touched marijuana, and I could say it on a life attack. But the stuff is so potent and is synthetic, it's incredible.
Yeah.
You can hear that, you can smell that blocks away.
Yes.
And when the wind catches you, it can come from a different direction. That doesn't make it all right. So I think 13 weeks, changing how we're doing business, how we're going to do these things, how we're going to get there. We're hearing your complaints specifically. We know some of the areas. We need to get on top of that. But we also need to help with the community how to prioritize that. And we will work on that, Scott.
Okay.
I promise you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Mark. I was wondering if we could talk about focus deterrence a little bit. I read that you're implementing it. I'm wondering what flavor of focus deterrence you're implementing. A lot of cities kind of pick and choose from the strategy of
Right.
what they put in. So I'm wondering what Wilmington's implementation looks like.
Great. Hey, Mark, that's a great question. And it was something, I didn't want to take too much time. The last time I did my town hall, I kind of tried to change it up a little bit, knowing it's going to come back to this. And I would love to talk about that all night long.
Me too.
So, and the thing is, what Mark's hitting on, it's called focus deterrence, it's called group violence intervention, it's called gang violence intervention. We did it in Chicago. The gangs in Chicago are more prevalent than they are on the East Coast, Wilmington, Philadelphia, New York, Boston. A little different, and I've been in both places to be able to tell you this. And what we were dealing with in Chicago was 59 parent gangs with over 640 factions and 110,000 gang members.
Yeah.
So that's what we were dealing with in Chicago. But that didn't stop us because the problem was overwhelming. We actually hit it, and I actually did gang call-ins, focused deterrence, in 12 different districts. So we were doing it in a lot of places. So I got to learn a lot on what works, what doesn't work, what not to do anymore, and continue to do things in a better way. So I was fortunate enough, once again, like I said, I was exposed to a Bill Bratton in the NYPD, but I was also exposed to a David Kennedy. And I was also exposed to the work, him and I worked very well together. And we actually sometimes teach together. So David and I, as a practitioner, he's a practitioner academic now, and he says he's more a bureaucrat. And he kind of says he's reinvigorated that I called on a favor. I said, once I got appointed to this position in Wilmington, one of my first calls is, David, I know a little bit about the city, but I don't care how busy you are. You need to come down here, give me a couple of months to look at the department and assess it. But I'm calling back a favor on you. And he says, Bob, I will be there in Wilmington for you. And he was here last week. He was here last week. We actually were before the editorial board at the News Journal. And Christina Jed was there, right? So Christina was there for that. And David actually met with us. He actually met with the mayor to tell him a little bit about things. Listen, I can explain it from a practitioner, but for a guy that's done it in like 25, 30 cities for the last 30 years, he gave me a little backup on really what we can do and we do it right. So we actually met with the mayor and his staff. We met with all my top staff, my officers, to get an understanding where we're going to go. And then we met also with the city council, some of the members of the city council, because I want to be transparent about what we're doing. And then I would have loved to bring him and take him all over the communities with me, but we didn't have enough time. His time is valuable as well. But he's right up Amtrak, a little over an hour and a half away, then he can come back and forth from New York City and his personnel. But what Mark's talking about, the flavor that I used and I endorse, that we evolved in what we did. Focused deterrence is when you understand that there's a small group of individuals, and we figured it out, it's almost 1%, it's less than 1% of 1% of the community is causing almost 60 to 70% of the crime. Violent crime, I'm talking about. So think about that. That's a really small group that are going back and forth, they all know each other. That's why sometimes we don't feel in danger in the city, because we know unless we're involved in those groups, those beefs, those things that they're happening, and it's not always over narcotics. It's not always over the drug trade. It's over beefs, it's over girlfriends, it's over the impulsiveness and the silliness and why they go back and forth. And once one shoots, it's very difficult even with arrest to stop that cycle of going back and forth, and sometimes it's generational. So you grab these groups because we know who they are. We know when the first person gets shot, what's the first thing, Bill, we do?
So it's victimology.
Victimology, and all the associates that, or they're the ones that are friends with the victim. There's the ones going to get the gun. They know who shot their friend. Guess where they're going to go? They're going to go back and try to shoot the other guy. And then they're going to come back. So you got to break that cycle. I'm not going to stop it totally, but if you slow it down, put time between incidents, you actually start to slow down the violence. And then you come into with strategies that I'm talking about. We're putting a lot of things in place, but I didn't want to start with focused deterrence until I knew my officers were understanding all the other philosophies and build a good base on where we want to go. Because if I don't have a good base and I throw another strategy on top, I'm setting us up to fail. And I already said in the beginning, I'm trying to build this for the long run, to have long-term success in this city. We need consistency in what we're doing in all our strategies. We can't give up on them. And we've got to make sure we implement them correctly, and then we execute them and follow up. So focused deterrence, you take all these individuals, they're in groups. You take those groups, and a lot of them are on probation and parole, and you call them in at a condition, as a condition of being on parole or probation, they have to come in. And they actually, the way this room's set up, I'm not making a comparison here, but this is how the room is set up. And it's set up with the individuals come in, and they're sitting in, we probably do the whole city. I had to do different parts of New York and or Chicago, but we could probably bring the whole city in. And those groups are representatives of their group. And we bring all the groups in. And they might be in conflict with each other, but there's a neutral territory. We check them at the door, we make sure that There's a safe passage when they get in and there's a safe passage when they leave. They kind of understand this, just like going to the Achievement Center. They have conflict when guys are going for reentry. Somehow they have an understanding this is not a place to do business and settle on people. You give them 3 messages. And those messages, one from law enforcement, which will be me up here. And hopefully I'll be in uniform soon. So it'll make more of a difference than just being up in a suit. And the message is, put the guns down. Stop the violence. We want you to be productive members of the community, and we want you to be alive. So that's our first message. And then I do it with the U.S. Attorney, the Attorney General, all our federal and state law enforcement partners. And it goes into a little more detail, but for time, I want to make sure that I'm trying to do the elevator speech on this one, but make sure it's clear what I'm talking about. That's the first message. And if you don't heed our warnings, then we're going to come down with everything we have, because we're going to prioritize you, the first group that shoots somebody, and we know, and we're going to make sure we know who you are. We're going to prioritize you, just like I talked. There's a lot of things that we can prioritize. They'll self-select. And then all the other groups are going to see who was the one that did the shooting. And in 3 or 4 months, we'll bring back everyone to see this group is the one that put somebody down who did a shooting. And this is the consequences that are up here. It also helps them, gives them an out to stop this violence, because there's another way we're looking at it. The second message is the moral voice of the community. And this is usually comes from, we can have a mother that's lost a son or a daughter to gun violence, and what's been left behind, and that they're raising grandkids that no longer have a father, and the grief and the payment for a funeral, and what has happened to the community for the violence. Well, we have a business leader from the community who says, listen, I'd love to give jobs, but I can't come and have anybody patronize my store because they're too afraid to come into this neighborhood and invest in this neighborhood because of what you're doing on the street and how you're doing it. People are afraid to come in. You need to stop. And or someone that's been rehabilitated that actually was from a life of crime that can tell them, I just did 20 years. I did 20 years. It wasn't worth it. And I missed, and he goes through everything he missed in his life. And there was actually one person that came in and said, when I was in jail, when I got arrested, my baby mama, went with another guy who molested their daughter. So how impactful, there's consequences to your actions, people that you love. And that really, when I speak and law enforcement speaks, there's not much attention. The people like slumped and like, I don't want to be here. When that happens, they sit up in their chairs and they listen. So you can see how it's making an impact. The third component and the third message we give is from social services. Now, we would love to give everybody jobs, but the ultimate goal is if you don't have your GED or you don't have a high school diploma, we will help you get there. If you don't have an ID card, we'll help you get one. If you have wages being garnished and you say, I'm not going to work because I'm not bringing any money home, we'll work with you. We'll work with you because you'd rather bring a little bit home and get something to the family that the wages are being garnished for. If you're worried about someone shooting at you and that's why you're carrying guns, we'll take a message, and I'll get into what focus deterrence and custom notifications are that we can do that will help. If you're so afraid, we'll possibly even help relocate you to a sister city to get you out of this type of crime. Some people don't want to be in it, they're afraid. They might posture and say, listen, I don't care, I'm not gonna make it till 21, 22, so what's the difference? Yeah, they care. They care. They don't want to die. So, that's all the fun. They care, because when we do talk and we do debrief them, why you're carrying that gun, they say, because someone else is carrying a gun, and you know what, I got to protect myself. So if you aren't worried about dying, why are you looking to protect yourself? So there's a big reason. They want to live, and we want to help them get there. We want to be able to give them job training, and then get job placement, regardless of what your past record is. We've done this in other places. We have to figure out a way, and I have a lot of partners that are asking, how can we help? Coming from the Secretary of Health Services, coming from federal resources. They were all asking me how I can help. Well, I'm not going to be shy about asking for help if it's going to help this community out. But I want to make sure I give them a specific plan on how we're going to do it. Just say, help me with no plan, because then you lose credibility. Because I want to be in a place that when I do ask for help, that usually it happens and I don't ask for everything. because sometimes if you over-ask and it's not really contributing to anything, I don't want to be that person. So there's things that we'll be putting in place to ask for that type of help. And some of the social service agencies, or some of the people that want to come in, we also have to vet them very well. And those things are going to be very difficult and be time-consuming, but it's worth it. And when the first body drops, we bring all the groups back in, and then we show them this is what happened. We didn't give you a choice. We told you this is you need to stop, but we gave you options out of it, but not a choice to stop the violence. And usually it doesn't work the first time. Someone drops a body or shoots somebody. I'm sorry I'm talking those type of terms, these are people. But when someone causes violence, that's what happens. We have to have the credibility from the law enforcement to say, wait a second, we told you. And we have to have credibility to follow up on what we said we were going to do if you did not pick the right choices. And that's what we do. And it usually takes probably the second and third cycle of bringing them back in to start seeing the results. And that was a question you asked me, Christine, when I'm getting started, and also, when can you start seeing results? Well, I've seen it work 12 different districts in Chicago. I've seen it work faster in some. I've seen it work slower in others. So I would love to give you a perfect, I would like it to happen on the first time. When we do that, it will have an effect because we're looking at it a different way. We identify these individuals because these individuals and the things that we put in place and the algorithms we use, and it's not by race, it's about who you're associated with, who you've been arrested with, what type of crimes, what type of violence you've been in. These people are about 700 to 1,000 times more likely to be a victim of a shooting or an offender in a shooting in the city of Wilmington. And some of it goes back and forth from Newcastle. So we will be working with our Newcastle partner because a lot of this does bleed over into the county and back and forth. So we got to make sure that we're very inclusive of what we're doing and how we're going to do this. For the ones that are not on probation and parole, that's where the custom notifications come in. And we did a lot of this, where I take the same message to I know people that are violent, I prioritize them. Or if I know, like we just had a shooting, I can't talk about it too much last night, but if I take that shooting and I know where the retaliation, who might be the group, we'll do our investigation, make the arrest. But that whole other group, I could take that message to their house. And I take someone, a stakeholder in the community, social services, moral voice, and the law enforcement, which is myself, will probably be one of my sector captains, or will be my inspector, Inspector Ash. And Inspector Ash is going to be the one that's going to be running this. And she's going to be my point person, because Inspector Ash is going to be doing the things I used to do in Chicago. And I want her to get out and see it live, because it's more impactful with her running it, seeing it, and seeing how it's done in other cities. So I'm going to get her out very shortly, bring it back, and then we're going to get started, hopefully by the end of August and into September. So those things, that's my flavor. And then I take it one step further. What I was most proud of, well, a lot of things that I'm proud of, accomplishments, saving lives. But one of the things, in 2015, when I left at the end of the year, 2015 in Chicago, we started juvenile custody notifications. And this is where it starts getting closer to the CDC and what we're talking about, Council President. And unbelievable job with the Council President. If she has an opportunity to talk about what she's trying to do, unbelievable work, because we've got to break the cycle with the trauma, the education, and getting us there. So I'm hitting it and trying to push it this way. And we started identifying juveniles that were going down the wrong road and took those custom notifications, working with the school districts to them. And in my last year, shootings and murders for juveniles went down almost 35%. Why? Shootings and murders went up for adults. So we started making traction in doing that. So these are a lot of good things that we can do. There's a lot of good things as we're doing it. And one thing I didn't mention, when we were doing all these things, getting crime down after almost 5 years in Chicago, down 40%, lowest some ever on record, and then shootings and murders down to lowest on record. We were arresting less people because we were getting smarter at what we're doing, identifying the people that were causing the most harm to the community and the crime, and getting better cases. Where's my friend from the legal justice system? Getting better cases, because if you make sure that you're looking at the right people, you're not arresting everyone. And when you go in as a task force and arrest the whole community, there's zero tolerance, then you just piss off the whole community. because you're not looking at the individuals that are causing most of the problems. We can work on this, and we can do it. It was almost, in 2 years' time, it was almost 15,000 less arrests a year, 1 2-year period. So those things, you do it, which makes the community happy that you're finding the individuals that causing damage, not arresting everyone. Our clearance rates started going up on cases because the trust was coming back. Our complaints against our police officers were going down. And actually, in that city, police-related shootings were actually going down almost 60% because there was so many things going on and so many positives. And it happened, when I say a short time, it took to get the traction 2 or 3 years. So that's the flavor. I could talk for a long time on it, but that's what we have on focus in terms of where we're going to go. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I have a question. So, a few. So I heard you mention like stop the violence a few times, and so I was kind of interested in knowing in what city have you seen violence stop, right? And also in a lot of that's one question, and the other is that in a lot of our communities. So I live on East 7th Street, and the way East 7th Street is divided on the 700 block between Spruce and Church, you have relatively 8 homes where there are homeowners, and then the beginning from Spruce to Bennett is pretty much renters and other individuals. And so a lot of times when a call is made about a nuisance issue, the reaction time or the response time to that is well beyond what's happened. So the people have left and they've taken whatever issues or problems that they have to a whole nother block where you typically find stabbing, shootings, what have you, Bennett, Kirkwood, what have you. And so how do we reduce, I guess my question is, how do we reduce the response time when a person calls about an issue that, let's say, loud music, they out screaming and hollering. How do we reduce the response time to those things?
Well, when things are gone through the 911 system, everything is prioritized, as we all know. And of course, robberies, crimes against people, those things are going to take priority over over crimes against the community, I call it, nuisance crimes or property crimes. So it's all a prioritized order. But I'm going to get to that in 1 second, but as far as stop the violence, I'm talking to those individuals saying, either you stop the violence, either you stop the violence, we're giving you options, but there are really no options. The options are to make the right choices, but when the community and the police, and no, everybody's not going to put up with that anymore. But you're absolutely right. What city has stopped violence? They've reduced the violence. And my goal is 0 shootings, 0 murders, 0 crime, 0 arrests. Get that? That's my goal. And someone says that's unrealistic. So if you don't aim for that, you know, so I'll probably, you know, probably never in my lifetime see that, but I'm going to achieve to get there, and I think everybody should. So reducing the violence, but those individuals, I'm saying stop the violence, so there will be consequences. But that will end up reducing the violence. You know, we got poverty, we got a lot of issues that go on, we got a lot of people that are addicted, and what are they doing? They're going to do property crimes, they're going to do that car thing, they're going to look for change, they're going to be out there in the early morning, they're going to try to do burglaries, they're going to do everything they can to feed that habit. And it's unfortunate about the rehabilitation that we have to put through, and that's another thing. And my friend from that I answered earlier about the criminal justice system, I'm a big believer in trying to get rehabilitation and drug treatment rather than incarceration. So I'm on the record, but there are some people that have to go to jail. That they're going to cause too much harm to the community. And if some young people want to carry guns and shoot them, they got to age out of that impulsiveness. I'm sorry, because they're gonna hurt someone. And as we've seen, we saw a 6-year-old shot very close during broad daylight with kids in the playground and kids in a car. And that, you know, that's someone. What do you do with that person? I'm sorry, game over. I don't think there's any excuse for that. If you think you can shoot and do that in broad daylight, so I don't know how you fix that person. You know what? The way we fix them, we incarcerate them, and make them think about it for a very long time. But in your area, prioritizing the calls for service, but starting here in these community meetings. This is the only way we're gonna get it done, getting to meet the officers, knowing the conditions. Listen, we're just scratching the surface about hitting these conditions over. We're on 7th and Washington. We're on 2nd and 2nd Street in Chapel. We're on, I know the conditions just right up the block, 401 East 9th Street. I knew they were doing curbicues, which was bringing people in from the outside, that they would party all night long. And by the time we were answering it, I only had 4 or 5 officers to answer it, and I had 50 people that actually were already on their way because they were smoking and they were drinking. That's a dangerous, volatile situation. How did it get that way? So my answer to my supervisors and my captain and my lieutenants, sergeants, corporals, and police officers, don't let it get to that way. Get on top of it in the beginning and stay on it consistently, shift to shift. Because if the guy in the daytime starts seeing it happen, he doesn't do anything about that. He's hurting the community, he's hurting his officers on the next shift. Nip it in the bud early. And where your feedback on specific conditions you just talked about, we want to take notes on it. Because when we go out of this meeting today, the only way we're going to start building trust and credibility and communication is be able to find the specific incidents that you're talking about, where they're happening, what time of day they're happening, and address them at that time. And that's where we're starting. This is really where I'm trying to change the way we do business. And this is the way our officers are changing the way they do business. And it all starts with these community meetings. Because they're not going to make that queue on the 911 that high up on prioritization. And by the time the officers might be starting to get to that call, you get called off on something else. But I would rather them start answering when they're waiting for that emergency call, know that condition, and address what you're talking about, sir.
Well, I think, and I don't need a microphone. I think, so when I'm home in the daytime, right, if I take off a day, what I see in the daytime is generally not what I see when I get off work. What I see in the daytime is a quiet, peaceful, somewhat east side. Very few people walking around. I'm like, oh, this can't be east side. This is right. But around 5 o'clock, it turns into a whole different environment.
Right.
Kids are typically out of daycare, and right about now, more kids are out playing, parents are home, what have you, and things just look a little bit different from what people. It's Monday and people barbecuing in front of their homes, and I'm like, you can't have a grill in front of your house. That's not. But I'm reluctant to say anything because I don't want no problems, right? So I won't say anything, and then I'm reluctant to dial 911, 211, 411, or any other 11, right? Because I'm just like, they're gonna take forever to come, and so I guess that's just my concern as a citizen and a resident.
God bless you.
And again, so as you go down 7th Street, you go into Old Sweet, and you go into pretty, it's nice.
I've been over there, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, how do can we put like a shield between?
Sorry. I know there's other people who want to ask questions, and I really, here's how we start. Captain McGillen's here, Lieutenant Campos, the district officers here. Bill, let's get this gentleman information that he can contact us when these conditions do come about. We understand what happens when the bell rings at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the dynamics change, and not so much in the summertime, but during the school year, everybody's coming home, everybody's doing this, and the dynamics seem to change, and we got to be able to adjust with them. Communication with my second captain and his people. This is where I'm starting, sir, and this is what you're talking about has been going on for quite a while, right? So what I'm trying to do is change the way we've done things and change the way and moving forward. And like I said, we got to do it for the long run. I'm asking for a little bit of patience, but you will start to see these things change as we communicate. Yes, sir? Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Brother Deborah. When I remember Delaware 10,000 Fearless Conflict Resolution Resource Project, also a member of Newcastle County Prevention Coalition. And we have been trying to build a relationship between law enforcement and the community because, like you come in and you say about the curvaceous and things of this nature, that's something we've been doing in Delaware all our life.
Right.
I'm saying it's not everybody that sits out and have a grill and a couple of friends in front of your house that's causing a problem. And I'm saying, I've been trying to get with, I met with the mayor, I met with somebody from the governor's office. I've been trying to meet with you. I called your office on a few occasions, trying to bring some things where the community and law enforcement and everybody can work together to try to identify what the real problems are, and not just, coming in and saying we're gonna come in with the big hammer of the law and we're gonna correct this. I'm saying this community problems, this community issues that all of us need to sit down and talk about. And me personally, I've been building relationships with police. I'm working with Lieutenant Dan now on the west side, on Central Washington. I go over and I just walk with him and talk to people in the community, trying to find out what the different issues are. And, we need this all over the city. The community needs access to yourself, law enforcement officials, to really sit down and find out what our real problems are. Because some of the problems aren't having a curvature. I'm saying that's sometimes brings the community together and that's all right. But I'm saying there's a lot of things that's going on with the drug sales, a lot of people that don't want to work, and a lot of people being unable to work, and things of this nature that we have to address.
Okay. Well, I'd be happy to sit down and speak with you, all right? We'll get on the schedule, I'll talk to you afterwards, okay?
All right.
Set it up. But here's the thing, I want to be careful with this. I'm not coming in with a hammer. I'm actually giving choices and listening to the community prioritize what their issues are. So I actually asked the community to prioritize it for me instead of me trying to figure out the thing I know what it is. So I'm not coming from the outside saying I'm going to put a hammer on this. I've got probably thousands and thousands of complaints about some of these locations that the community is asking me to please stop doing that. So when I say a curvature at one part, I can tell you probably on a daily basis, if people get up to me, if not to my secretary, I get 10, 15 calls a day about that from different people. So some of the community is not happy with that. I got to balance that. And I got to figure out, I'm working for the community. And if the community that's calling me is telling me, we don't want this on our block, this is causing problems, then I can't ignore that. And that's why we are everywhere. And that's why I want to make sure I'm at every meeting, and my officers are at every meeting, because each community is a little different with their priorities and what they want. And that's why doing an open setting like this, as big as it is, I like this because it actually lets me introduce myself. And then I said, okay, then I can walk up the door. I said, I met everyone. No, I want to get to the civic associations and sit at them to hear those concerns from each one of those communities, because not every community is the same, not with their priorities or what they want. And we need to know that. If we think we're going to figure it out for them, we're going to make mistakes. Yes. So I'm with you. I'm with you on it, but I'm really careful. When I said curvaceous, and I use that location, there's a lot of people. That's a nuisance property, and there are a lot of people coming from outside the community to go sit there and then party all night long, which wasn't fair to the community. I'm great if the community wants that, but the community said, that's not our community. These people are commuting in to sit here and cause parties all night long and drinking, and they want to go to sleep, and they got to work in the morning. So I got to be sensitive to that. So let's talk about that. I'd love to hear how we can do things better. I'd love to give you more of my ideas. I really can't get my whole message out tonight, but I think one-on-one, if we sit down and have a conversation, I think we're going to really be agreeable to a lot of things. Okay, sir? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Shania. I'm recently 10 years old, and every morning I watch the news, and there's things like people getting killed, and this is the question that really stands out to me. Like, where do the people get the guns from to kill each other?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a really good question. You stand. You come up here. Come on up. I think that's, for a 10-year-old to get up and ask a question like that, I think that's great. Yep, because these are our leaders. These are the leaders. You know, with the news media reporting that and some of the things that happen, these guns, there's so many loopholes in how the guns get to our city. And a lot of them are being bought illegally and then transferred or sold illegally. And we have to tighten that up. And I think it's a national issue, it's a local issue. It's some of the things that we got to make sure that if there's straw purchasing, and that's when I said they're bought illegally and then sold or transferred illegal, that's when someone goes in, doesn't have a criminal record, buys a firearm or buys 5 of them, and then knows some people that don't want to do good with them, walks over and sells them to them. And then we trace them back because we can find out where they were bought and who bought them. We got to make sure that we get laws on the books, or the laws that are there, we're enforcing them to make sure that there's some sanctions against that person that's buying those guns. Because that person is culpable, is the one that's pulling the trigger when they're contributing to that. And there's a breakdown in our criminal justice system. And that's something that I've talked about, I will continue to talk about, I will work with my state legislators, I will work with our federal legislators. And I often talk about that, and your voice, what I'm hearing, is the same voice that I want to say, because I want to see everybody safe, and I know it's contributing. So hear that from a 10-year-old, thank you very much. And, you know, I think I see a future leader right here. So thank you very much.
I don't want to be.
You don't want me to bring you?
No.
You want to come up?
No, I'm fine. I just don't want the cameras. No. But I'm a resident of the East Side and been a resident for years. I hear all of the talk, and I'm going to be honest, I have no trust. You know, it's just talk, talk, talk. I'm tired of the talk. 8th and Pine is an issue, has been an issue for years. You know, I now have, just a couple weeks ago, I'm in the process of going out of town. I'm sitting in my house, I'm looking out the window, there's a guy scaling my car. So I get up, I go to the window, he's hiding drugs up underneath of my wheels. There's a house on my block, 716. I've reported and reported. There's squatters in there. I've called license and inspection, nothing's happening.
Right.
You know, I call the police, I call. I'm tired. I'm to the point where I'm tired, and I'm ready to go. You know, it's my parents' home. I've been there for 60 years. You know, and it's just to the point where I just hear the talk. I'm tired of the talk.
Right.
You know, is there, and another question, where's the mayor at tonight?
Well,
Where is he?
well, I think this is with the city council.
But, and I don't mean to interrupt you, and
Well,
but I called the mayor's office. I know there used to be an open door policy. I think that has changed. I've called on several occasions. I'm going to take your name. Somebody will call you back. Nobody's called me back. And I feel as though he's weaning out certain complaints. And if he wants to discuss it, he will. If not, so it's just so much. It's too much, and I'm just tired. And I'm really in the process of looking and moving out of the neighborhood.
Okay.
You know, and all the promises down through the years, it's a joke. It is. It's a joke. You know, and you have a school across the street from where I live, and I mean, it's constant. The drug activity down there, it's so constant. Sunday morning to Sunday. You know, and I was told at one time, oh, write down, tag numbers, do this. I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. I'm the only homeowner on my block. And another thing, these homeowners, they need to be made accountable. But what it is, they fix their property up, and the same people, look, and I have nothing against renters, nothing against renters. But it's the same, you're fixing them up, and the same people are coming back. You know, it's horrible. It really is. There was a situation with a neighbor, he had dogs. And I don't know whether he was breeding the dogs, but it was pit bulls. I mean, several times I had pulled up in front of my house, had to sit in my car because these dogs are running the block. And it's just, I mean, he's gone now, but it's just constant, and I'm fed up.
Well, let me just start with the mayor. This meeting tonight was more about Councilwoman inviting me to talk about public safety. And the mayor, if he comes here at the same time, then he splits time, and actually then I end up deferring to him. And I wanted to make sure that you hear from me, you learn who I am, tell me about your problems. I haven't been here in the past, and I know it didn't get this way overnight, what you're talking about. This is a gradual thing that's happened. So I'm not going to make you promises that I'm going to be able to fix this, and my office is going to fix this overnight. But I will tell you one thing, we will make the effort. We will make sure that we're listening to you. We will make sure that if you have places where drugs are being done, with communication, where you don't have to jeopardize your safety, and it'll be confidential with individuals I want to introduce you to, then you know what? Give us a chance to take a look at that. And it's not giving you a chance overall. Just give us a chance to take a look at those issues that you're talking about. So that's why I'm here, not the mayor. Because, you know, the mayor has appointed me to hear these things and see how I can do that and put a person in place that should be able to address those issues instead of him. We want to have confidence. You're going to tell your problems to what you just did to him, then why is he needing?
Well, I'm just saying that just his presence being here. I understand.
Right.
I understand the purpose of the meeting.
Right.
So,
No, I get that. I just want to make sure it's not. Listen, I've worked for a couple of mayors. This person definitely has his finger on the pulse, and he actually does care, and then that's why he's asking me to do the things that I'm doing, and it's a point to the person with the philosophy and the strategies that I have in place and some of the experience. So it's not going to be from a lack of effort, and I promise you, you probably get, if you haven't gotten it in the past, there's going to be better communication, and then let's see how that goes, and then if it's not, we'll have another conversation and find out why it's breaking down, okay?
one other question though,
Sure.
is there a curfew for
Yes.
children?
Yes,
There is?
yes.
Okay. What are the time frames?
All right, well, it goes from 10 o'clock during the week, depending on the age, and then it goes to 11 o'clock. It's everybody 17 and under. So here's the thing with curfews, and we've been working on this. Some of the things that happen, if there's a problem with a child, and we see something like extremely dangerous condition, no, we're not going to pass that over as police officers. And we are going to enforce curfews at certain times when we see it. But if we systematically go out and enforce curfews, and then a lot of times we're taking the child back home to that household, and the kid's going to the front door and out the back door. So did we solve anything? But we did take our police officers off patrol to help reduce crime, first of all. Or if the parent is not around, we end up having to sit with the child back at headquarters, waiting for a parent, or then we have to hand the child over to family support services to protect them because a parent didn't show up. And that's more officers that are off the street. So I kind of weigh that, and that's on me as far as the decision. My officers will go out and they'll enforce, they're not going to allow any harm to come to children. But a lot of times, if there is an adult, they'll take responsibility if there's one adult in the area around them. There's a lot of different situations. But what I'd like to see is a perfect curfew policy, perfect, which is very difficult to do, is to make sure that we have wraparound services and a drop-off center, a centralized drop-off center, where we can get the help to that child or find out what's wrong in that home, that child's out unsupervised, possibly in an area where either can get hurt or get themselves in trouble. And I want to make sure that we can get them the services they need. That's really where I want to be on curfews. So it's not that we're not enforcing them, but if we do it as a full policy, I'm not going to have officers on the street to prevent bigger crimes. So I got to weigh that out as far as a public safety issue.
And I can share also too about that the city council is investigating that how could we provide the support to the police department for curfews. And right now we've kind of done an estimate of the cost that it would take for us to have an intake system and the necessary support person in place to, if any gentlemen, people are brought up to speed. Right now it's about $150,000. Okay, it's not in this year's budget. I've talked to Matt Dent, Attorney General, about trying to get some money from him, and we're working to try to get those resources to put that in place.
Hanifa, I would like to add, because I've thought about the curfew policy as well, and I think
we have enough people in our community that we may want to even volunteer
I
to
agree.
do that, because this is something that needs to start immediately, and it always comes to funding to prevent that. So if there's a place that, you know, so I'm just saying, let's think about how we can use our assets, and that's the people who live within the community.
Well, I'm glad you did say that, Joanne, because if you had heard City Council to bring up the point of curfew, we brought it up in the Education, Youth, and Families Committee and not the Public Safety Committee, because we didn't want to use this as another policing tool. We saw this was a community initiative that we can get the community involved to doing the curfew, to do the, also doing the curfew overview, the enforcement. You know, so we got community persons, and we call them community intervention teams. And we had our own community persons out in the street seeing a child that's violated curfew, then they can take them to the community-based safe haven and would not involve the young person being involved with the police department. Those who don't comply to that, then that will leave the very few left for the police to handle, because yes, they need to be out doing other things. So yes, that was our reason of taking it to that committee, so that we could be a community-based initiative, because we do have to get involved in dealing with this. But if we leave it on the police to do it from a police force enforcement, we're talking about we need approximately $150,000 to cover the cost of it. But I agree, and I would love to all the communities and neighborhoods to start that discussion of how we can organize a community-based curfew program rather than it being done through the police department.
I got it. Okay. I got about 3 questions actually. I'm gonna make it quick and easy because they should be easy. I was raised from an old school. If your parents weren't around, your neighbor looked at you wrong, and you looked at the neighbor all went wrong way, that neighbor will tear you behind them. So I believe it starts at home first, and I always have thought that way. I raised my son that way, I was raised that way. So it's gonna take, like they say, it takes a community. So, I understand that a lot of these kids out here now, they're not scared of the police, they're not scared of their parents. And, that's why I think it has to start a lot with the community all around. There's nobody to blame, because it's not a single person. And the curfew, where's the parents at? That's why the curfew, that has nothing to do with the policing. That's the parents' problem. And yeah, I'm sorry to say that, but that's how it's going that far. And that's what it does. It takes for us to take the city back, take your community back. Walk the streets with the police officers. Let them know that we're not scared of them. Because that's the whole point is, they think in their mind that everybody's scared of them. And like to have it right now, we're across from a park. 8 3-wheelers flying through the stop sign. Kids coming across your street. That's the main thing. That's what worries me, is the 3-wheelers. And they have no respect for nobody. Elderly, young, anything. They don't have no respect. I just like there's something that we could do to get them to slow down or go on a track where you're supposed to be with the 3-wheelers. Because eventually, some kid's going to come across that park is going to get hit. Because they go right through the stop sign. So I think my main thing is somehow that the community, the police officers, everybody can get together and try to figure out a solution for that, especially around the park area. Because like I said, you worry about the small ones. And like I said, I'm not scared of them. If I see them doing something wrong, I'm going to let them know I see them. And God doesn't want to take me up to earth. So if it's meant for me to go, that's what God told me. But I'm going to speak out because I'm not scared of them.
And that's everything that we're trying to do. We're trying to, one of the things, the younger children, if we do see things, not even on curfews, but we have a strategy program with CDCP, child development through community policing, that when we are in the homes, we are probably the most foremost arm of government in law enforcement, because people call us into their homes, they ask us when there are issues. So we actually get called into issues and we see these things. So You're absolutely right. We got to break the cycle. And that's through CDC, looking at trauma, how children learn, working with the schools. If we get into those homes, we identify issues, yes, we're going to report them. And doesn't have to be, absolutely, if we see some abuse and everything, we're going to take that child right out of the home. But there's some things that we know there are underlying issues that haven't risen to that, and we'll make the notification, and we have victim services that people that are very good at what they do, would work very closely with us, that work in our headquarters, and they come out and they look at these situations and they offer services. So we're trying to hit it when they're young to make sure that we can get ahead of that, because there are some broken homes, absolutely. And these poor kids are a victim of it. And you know what, we can sit here and kind of judge as much as we want, but my God, if they're going through some of the things that I've seen and other people have seen, we want to make sure they have a chance in life. And we have an obligation, if not for what we do, but just as human beings, helping each other out. And that's what we need to do. And I get it, but there's some challenged children. We got to get them the help, and that's what we're working on. And I know all my partners, even from the city council to the state, to the legislators, to the mayor, and my other partners in city services. We're looking to do that. So thank you for your comment. We're going to take one more question. I think is that we could take one more question, right, sir?
I don't know if I necessarily have a question, but I have comments. I think that we need to clean the neighborhoods up, you know, with the vacant properties.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Pine Street alone, I just sold one of my properties because I couldn't keep anybody in it. But the vacant properties are drawing a lot of the kids. They're sitting on the steps, they're coming in the neighborhoods often. I said, and the other thing is that our trees, I've called several times and stuff for the trees and stuff. You can't even see the cameras. I mean, the trees are so full. And the city put the trees up, but they can't even respectfully come and cut the trees and stuff so the cameras can be put up. More lighting needs to be put up in our neighborhoods. There need to be more policemen riding around. We called several times in our neighborhood to get the kids off the street. It takes like maybe 3 or 4 of us to get, you know, constantly make the calls until the police officers show up. But the police officers, I believe, actually know where the kids are loitering on the streets. So why aren't they just going around and stuff and showing them a way and making sure that they don't stay in there? Why do we have to constantly call? You know, let them do their job, and you know, as far as cleaning up, you know, the kids off the street. The other thing, just one more comment.
Sure.
There's nothing actually for our kids to do in our community. The centers are closed, people's settlements closed. There's not a lot of opportunity for the kids to go in and do things. And so we need to open up more centers to give kids more choices and stuff to do things instead of hanging on the streets.
Right. Well, I'm going to try to recycle cameras, lights, trees, children loitering, and then places for children to do things, right? Did I hit all the comments?
And the vacant properties
the
that have been
vacant properties.
sitting there forever.
Right, so starting with the trees, I almost feel like you've been in one of my meetings, because they said, oh, let's get more cameras and get more lighting. And I said, well, if we get more cameras and more lighting, we still can't see what's going on until we get ahead of what the trees are going on. It's not my department, but if it's affecting public safety, I do have a say on that. So that has been brought up, and I'm pushing for the same thing you asked. And then the cameras and the lighting will work a lot better. The existing, and let's add to that, number one. The blight, we've just had crime and blight meetings where we're working with the city planner, we're working with the Renaissance, we're working with the land bank. We're actually doing things where we're prioritizing these locations where they're not just going from one property by amount that's owed, but by where the crime is happening, and we're prioritizing them, and we're actually sharing information a heck of a lot better between agencies and how we prioritize these locations you're talking about with L&I planning. It's a whole mayor's task force working with the city council, and how we're going to move forward on these buildings and try to revitalize them, and then make sure that if we do board them up, what is happening in front of that location, where the landlord's been, if they're in foreclosure, if the bank owns it, we'll take them back. And these are some of the things that there's more to talk about on that, but I promise you there's prioritization going on, and we're involved in it as well because it does affect public safety. The loitering with the children, where it's happening, this is why I have these officers in this room. This is why my captain is the point person for this sector and also that district, and having my sergeant and my lieutenant here. I want you to talk with them afterwards, because hearing the issues that you have, and what you do, I want consistency where he's supervising to make sure that those things are hit, where we don't prioritize them, and then we know exactly what the community wants. And then we get more specifics, rather than a 911 call that takes a little while longer because it's not prioritized. That's why I want my officers in these meetings, every single meeting, every time we have them. And the same officers, and you're always gonna get the same captain or lieutenant, and also the sergeant. And then the officers rotate on their shifts, but they're staying in the same areas. Loitering, what was the last one we had?
I talked about the kids having some place.
Oh, and the last thing, I think we have to, we're getting the word out there, but there's safe havens throughout the city, where the Parks and Recreation, there's 13 of them. You want to hand out, you want to hand? Okay, there's 13 of them throughout the city. And I think it's incumbent of us to make sure that we have been advertising, we have been getting it out, where these children can go do something where they're not hanging out on the street. Basketball leagues, what is it called, the Silk Basketball League that we do. There's certain things that possibly we have not done a good job of advertising, or we're in the infancy of getting better at advertising what we can do for the children on the street. And I just met with a person, I did a walk with Pastor Ben. Her and I, every week I try to make it with my officers, we walk through the community. And I saw some guys standing over a garbage can, and I said, hey guys, I actually had my family in that weekend from Chicago, so I took my wife and 3 kids with me, and they stayed very close by me over on 30. But it was the only time that they really gave their dad a hug. But because I went up to some guys, you know, they had the tattoos, they looked a little rough looking, and I said, and they have me coming up in a suit, and I said, hey guys, I need your help. How can we stop the violence? What's going on? And they said, it's these young kids that have nothing to do. And I said, well, guys, the PAL's right up the block. Are we not going there? And he goes, we didn't know about that. We don't know about this. And I said, you know what? I don't know the medium that we're using, but we have to do a better job at communicating it. And I asked Pastor Ben, I asked Captain Fahim Akil, who covers Sector 1 in that area, and his people, let's get the word out at every community meeting. Let's make sure, and possibly it's already on Channel 22 as far as what we do on cable, but it has to be through other ways, and I said that.
The work that I'm doing with the CDC, we have just acquired a young person as a consultant to come in and help us to brand and to create a communication vehicle for our young people. Our typical methods that we communicate is not going to work. There's not flyers, there's not Channel 22, even just pointing them to the PAL and telling them this program is not going to happen. So we just hired a young person to come in to help us to come up with the Snapchat and all those different kind of social media tools that the young people use. We've created focus groups of young people to come and tell us how do we communicate to the young people where there are programs and what kind of programs do they want. We've had various focus groups. The young people telling us some of the things they want. They do want to know they do want to do things like sewing and construction. I mean, they want to know those kind of things. And so we'd be able to, in the safe havens that he talked about, we got money from the state to keep 13 community centers open late on late nights and on weekends with extended hours, so that they can, and they have evidence-based programming that are in those types of organizations. But the key is how do we drive the kids into that? So that's why we're working to get that type of social media and that communication out with them. And a lot of these young people, they have networks that got 3,000 to 4,000 in their networks. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're connecting and partnering with the young people and bringing in them and letting them tell us. Because a lot of times that's what our problem is. We don't listen to them when there's a communication gap. We're trying to bridge that gap and bring them at the table, let them direct us of how we can bring them into the various community centers. And then while they're there, we have the necessary persons who can build those relationships that you talked about, can find out what the issues might be and direct them to the necessary support services that are available. Because we did it, I mean, I'm quite sure that our Councilwoman Dixie can talk about you did an assessment of all the different type of health type of programs and initiatives that are out there. And the list is long. But we do, we have a communication vehicle problem in the city of Wilmington of how do you get the information to the people that really need it. And then in a language that the people will feel comfortable to and trustworthy to go into that agency to and tell them what their issues are, tell them their business. Then you're right, we have to build that trust. So we're, like I said, that if you stay tuned for that. We're working diligently trying to make that happen, but things do take time, and it's not an instant fix. Oh, can I say one other thing? And the issue by people settlement. You know, we really need community to pull together and help us to address the issue of people settlement. It is a non-profit agency. It has its own corporate seal, and it's very difficult for government to go into that agency and stop them from doing what they're doing. So if the community is not happy with that, then the people settlement needs to hear that for the community. Because we agree, and I'm talking about the legislators, we've had numerous meetings, Senator Henry, Senator Marshall, myself, Helene Kelly, we have gotten together and trying to address the issues for that. That agency is not providing the community with the support services that it should. So community, if you're upset with that, then we need the people settlement needs to hear your voice that you want something to happen there. Government can only do this so much in dealing with that nonprofit agency.
Thank you, Council President. And
Did I get any money? All the money's been cut off. So it's not.
one thing too, with reporting complaints, and I just wanted to finish up with this, because I actually, within the police department, educating our officers the importance of exact addresses. Now, if we're going to follow up, and sometimes there's civil litigation, or we're going to follow up on these properties, when you're reporting what's happening, let's talk about exact addresses, because that memorializes us over a 911 system. And then when the officers respond, they actually will help verify that this is happening at certain addresses, because the Attorney General's office has a nuisance team that actually will go out on these properties and go after landlords and businesses that are having problems around them. And the more calls to service with the exact address, and the officer putting the exact address, helps build a better civil case in some of these places. So I had a lady last town hall said, "Why do you need the exact address? Just go out and do it, and why am I wasting my time? Why am I giving it to you?" And I think it's an education process I had to do internally, and I think at every civic association, every community meeting, I'm going to talk about that. Give us exact addresses, because in the end, it helps us on cases, on exact addresses, where the locations are. And we're actually been as guilty as police officers, because we'll say the 500 block, we'll say the corner of, no, I want my officers giving exact, so I'm doing it internally and externally, because it helps us out in the long run. I know that was the last question. First of all, I will I'm going to give the mic right back to Councilwoman Harlee, but I also want to thank Councilwoman Dixon. I want to thank Council President Shabazz, and thank you very much for your support in inviting me here tonight. But I also want to thank my police officers for being here and the work that you're going to do. They're going to be staying afterwards. Every one of you meet up with the captain, and we're going to make sure that the complaints, that complaints with concerns, where we're going to work together to solve them, and then continue conversation and sharing information. You got that, Captain, right? And most of all, to the community, thank you for giving the time to me to introduce myself, to listen to your concerns. In my short time here, I'm trying to learn them as fast as possible, that we can help try to solve them. And I will be staying around as well, should anyone have a question that wasn't asked, or you just want to talk to me about something on the sidebar. So, thank you. I'm going to give it back. Okay.
No, just real
Sure.
quick. I mean, I have some other things, but mostly everyone has touched what I had to say. When you call, and this is even the 65,
Right.
441, the people who answer the phone, I'm sure they get some type of training.
Right.
But I'm telling you, they can be very frustrated. A lot of times it's like you're bothering them.
Right.
That's the attitude I get.
Oh, we also have them on tape, and then if we hear incidents that's happened, we can go back, and it either could be a retraining issue, or disciplinary issue, or separation issue, because within the job that they don't like, that they can't serve the community in a proper way, a respectful manner, then I don't want them working for the Wilmington Police Department. Okay? Yes, and we'll deal with that progressively, but if there's a time that you have it, and then you can get that information to us, because let us know the time when you call and the name, if the person doesn't give a name, we can go to the tape and we can figure that out. And we will do that. And we'll make sure that that's taken care of. So I apologize if that happened. So I want to thank everyone else in the room. Thank you for having me. This is just the beginning. This is not a one and done where you see us. This is going to be part of our DNA. This is the way we're going to move forward in policing, because it's the right way to do policing. And this is how we're going to move forward. And this will make our community safer. These are the things I've seen when people stay the course, we stay consistent, we stay disciplined, working with the community. I know when people told me things can't be done and things can't change, I've seen them change, and this is how we got there. So thank you very much, and I'm going to hand it back over to Councilwoman Harlee. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Chief. We really do appreciate you for your time. And I think that this was a very good conversation on tonight. What do you think? Give yourselves a hand. Give yourselves a hand. I think we really were able to ask a diverse plethora of questions to the Chief. The Chief did a very good job, I feel, in addressing each and every one of the questions. And as the Chief said, the conversation doesn't start in tonight. It's going to continue. And how is it going to continue? It's going to continue at our Civic Association meetings. In this way, the Chief will be able to tailor the specific issues that each one of our civic associations have in our different communities. So one more time, let's give the Chief a hand, or Council President a hand as well. And before we close out, I do want to acknowledge a couple other people that I think is pretty important within our communities. We have civic association leaders that take the time out to schedule civic association meetings to bring the communities together to talk about public safety, to talk about issues and concerns. So I want to acknowledge our civic presidents that are here on tonight. We have Mark Ramus, who is our president of Midtown Brandywine. I'm going to ask him to stand. We have Chuck Fleming that represents the Riverfront. Let's give him a hand. We have Marie Reed here that represents Southbridge Civic Association. We have Miss Barbara Washam, who's been around for a long time. She represents Upper East Side. And then we have Tawana Peterson, who is here. She's in the back. She represents the East Side Civic Association. We have Karen Ingram, who represents what's the name of your group again? West Village Neighborhood Association, thank you. And do we have anybody here from Trinity vicinity? Or are you here tonight? Well, we have one person here from Trinity.
No, we're from Compton Town Concerned Citizens.
Yes, Compton Town Civic Association. Thank you, Gladys. Yes, and I just want to say that Trinity vicinity, they had our chief of police with them this week. So pretty much of what our chief was sharing on tonight, he was sharing with Trinity vicinity on this week. So I imagine that's one of the reasons why they are not here tonight. But nonetheless, we thank each and every one of you for coming out on tonight. And before we close, I just want to mention that we still have some pizza over on the left-hand side and some drinks. And for those of you that did not get a chance to visit the gallery downstairs, the gallery is still open until 8:45 tonight, and we're encouraging you and welcoming you to go to the gallery. We want to make sure that everyone filled in the the sign-in sheet, put your name on the sign-in sheet. We want to continue to keep you engaged and involved when we have these types of meetings. So with that being said, that ends our community conversations for this evening, and thank you very much. Good night, everyone.